public comment section. Just a few comments ahead of time. I'm going to read the name of each speaker. You'll be coming up in pretty much in the order in which you signed in. You will have 3 minutes to talk, and that is a hard stop, unfortunately. And so if the 3-minute time comes and passes, with all due respect, I'm just going to thank you and move on to the next one. Someone will be sitting here doing these cards so that you can see how your time is coming, okay? And so we have on stage, okay, Karen Whelan. She's pretty much the head of all this. She's the director of the office, director for the state, local, tribal cooperation, energy policy, and systems analysis. Did I get that right, Karen? Good. And next to her is Larry Mancetti. He's the director for state and regional assistance, Office of Electricity, Delivery and Energy Reliability, and sort of on loan to help Karen. And then Matt McGovern is Senior Advisor, Office of the Deputy Director for State, Local, Tribal Cooperation, Energy Policy, and Systems Analysis. So they're the EPSA representatives. Essentially, you will be giving your comments too. So, Lay Youngblood.
Hello. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So my name is Lee Youngblood. I'm the Executive Director of Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust, the North Quabbin Regional Landscape Partnership, and the Massachusetts Land Initiative for Tomorrow. My comments address the Tennessee Pipeline proposal. Since 1986, Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust has conserved 27,000 acres of land in 24 north central Massachusetts cities and towns, partnering with hundreds of private landowners and state, local, and federal agencies for the benefit of the environment, the economy, and future generations. Mount Grace is keenly aware that no public convenience will be achieved by construction of a new shale gas pipeline across the northern tier of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Kinder Morgan's Tennessee gas pipeline proposal to have local ratepayers finance the destruction of conserved and/or intact natural resources that are relied upon for good health for the purpose of transferring outdated fossil fuels, which are unnecessary for meeting an already shrinking regional energy demand and detrimental to a global atmosphere increasingly reactive to greenhouse gases. This taxes the public in multiple ways, only to funnel the resulting immense private profits to relatively few. The New England states are increasingly achieving record energy efficiencies and readily embrace community-scale renewable energy infrastructure. In lieu of a new pipeline, for example, the $2 billion price tag of the Mass section of the Tennessee gas pipeline could be more prudently spent installing 4 kW rooftop solar systems on 100,000 homes, which would collectively generate $80 million worth of electricity annually. This without destroying the land or our atmosphere. An alternative infrastructure investment such as this, at this scale, 400 megawatts, would provide numerous benefits to the public interest while avoiding critical losses to 100 years of prior investments in land conservation, and by avoiding time-sensitive exacerbations of climate volatility extremes that we are experiencing today, and they're projected to worsen. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Stefan Kurosaki.
Thank you. I would first like to say that the Northeast doesn't have a supply side problem. The problem that we have is a demand and supply side problem. If the problem is only referred to as supply problem, then only a supply solution will be looked at. If we talk about meeting our needs, the conversation should start with conservation, energy efficiency, and if we have a concern about climate change, thirdly would be renewables, and lastly would be the polluting technologies such as fossil fuels and nuclear. If we do not implement this list in this order, we will leave a very different climate and a planet that is difficult to live on for our grandchildren. I would like to illustrate the power of conservation, energy efficiency, and renewables. 2 years ago, my wife and I had the good fortune to participate in the National Grid Deep Energy Retrofit Program. Thank you, National Grid in Massachusetts. By super insulating and air sealing our house, we installed a heat pump, 2-kilowatt solar system, and practicing conservation, we were able to bring our total cost for electricity, heat, and the entire energy use down to $60 a year. This is the equivalent to 60 pounds of CO2. Conservation, efficiency, renewables have been mentioned by a few different presenters today. We need to bring conservation, energy efficient, and renewables to the center stage to solve our energy needs. So I have 6 recommendations. Number 1, incentivize to a greater extent peak load shaving. Number 2, make it mandatory that any building that is be built to zero net energy or zero plus energy parameters. Number 3, institute a more aggressive time of use electric metering system that Mr. Riley of the Vermont Electric Power Company mentioned earlier. Number 4, put a severe carbon tax on all polluting energy producers. Number 5, measure CO2 emissions, measure CO2 equivalent emissions for the complete cycle of extraction, manufacturing, production, and burning of all fossil fuels. Number 6, remove all incentives for energy produced from fossil fuels and nuclear. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Could I encourage you both to submit your comments in writing, and you can do that at QER comments@hq.doe.gov, and I'd like all of the people who comment to also submit their comments in writing as well. Thank you. Okay, next up is Janice Kursak.
Hello. Thanks for hearing us. My name's Janice Kurkowski.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm the chair of the Warwick Buildings and Energy Committee. That's Warwick, Massachusetts, population 750. I'm also a member of the North Quabbin Energy Group. Our members in North Quabbin Energy represent the 9 towns of the North Quabbin Energy committees appointed by the town select boards. We are grappling with how to reduce our energy consumption and save money in our small towns. For the past 6 years, we've participated in many different types of events and activities, always with an emphasis on the idea that the single best way to address the high financial, social, and environmental costs of our current energy use patterns is to consume less energy in the first place. We've discovered in our community work that most people seem aware of the reasons for conserving energy, and they're also knowledgeable about the basic weatherization and conservation strategies that utilities, municipalities, and community groups like ours try to promote. But, except when energy prices are extraordinarily high, it appears that there is a great deal of inertia among the general public about actually making changes in their energy consumption patterns. So I want to bring to your attention a legislation that we would like the states, and also working with the Department of Public Utilities, to implement a rate structuring program, or stepped utility, or tiered rate, as has been done successfully for many years in the state of Vermont by a small utility called the Washington State Cooperative. They have a tiered rate. National Grid does that in our area, but in a very minuscule way. So if you use over the average amount of electricity, you get to pay a little bit more for that. In the Washington State Cooperative, they made that even more pronounced, and as a result, their customers use on average about 17% less than households in our area. So I'm asking for how could these, one, how could the concerns of low-income customers or those with large families, how could their concerns be addressed? And I can say that the programs that are already in place have answers to those questions. I also want to know what could the revenue do from these increased revenues from people who overconsume, and I would suggest that public outrage would be justified if the money went into the general coffers of the utility companies. Enhanced conservation programs should be the target of these revenues. Thank you.
Next up is Joe Dalton. Okay, I'll go on. William E. Dornbos. Did I get it right?
Dornbos, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'm an attorney and the E&E Connecticut Director for Environment Northeast. Just want to make 3 high-level points because in 3 minutes it's not very possible to talk about detailed energy policy. The first would be that it's very important, and we would encourage DOE to think about the top-order question that it's going to ask itself as it analyzes these energy issues. And we would propose that that question should be formulated somewhere along the lines of, how do we address New England's future energy needs at the lowest cost, consistent with our environmental goals? And we think that this question then, if you approach it in that manner, then the resource analysis falls out in a way that highlights the advantages of demand-side resources, which we would politely disagree with. Some of the speakers here earlier today have not actually been studied and given equal weight, at least according to the studies we've looked at. In particular, distributed generation, combined heat and power, and energy efficiency have all been essentially left out of most of the major studies. These are huge resources that can be deployed at low cost and at lower risk than a pipeline, and actually faster, and we disagree with Vermont on that too. The second point I want to highlight is that there are technology changes that are happening right now, and they're pointing to an energy future that depends more heavily on distributed energy and renewable supply. Long-lived infrastructure investments that do not recognize this future energy world could very well prove economic, potentially saddling ratepayers with stranded costs, and this is the major risk of a new natural gas pipeline. An example of a very promising technology that we've spotlighted in our Energy Vision report that has the potential to transform the thermal sector are cold climate ductless heat pumps. They're actually already viable now in New England and commercialized. They have a coefficient performance of about 2.4, which makes them much more efficient than thermal technologies for heating your home, and they also have the advantage of both heating and cooling your home. We think that technologies like these should be studied and incorporated into any regional analysis of New England's energy future. Finally, I think we have a historic opportunity to get this right, and we just encourage DOE to not rush to judgment on this. There's a few principles we'd like to humbly suggest. First, please keep consumers first in mind when we're thinking about making these investment choices. Also, please think about aligning infrastructure expenditures with state public policy priorities, including long-term energy and climate goals. And then please also be sure to think about viable advanced technologies that are now entering the marketplace that could have the potential to disrupt long-term investments in traditional infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Doug Feister. Okay, Rich Cowan.
Hi, my name is Rich Cowan. I have a master's in electrical engineering at MIT. I wanted to just react to some of the things that were said on the panel. And I'm not speaking as an energy expert. I do not work in the energy field currently. I speak as a consumer and a parent, and I also work with the Mass Pipeline Awareness Network. We heard a lot on the panel today about pipeline constraints, about how we urgently need to add, I think it was 2 billion cubic feet of capacity in order to serve our needs. As you all know, people who are in the energy industry, there already is a project that will add about 1.5 billion cubic feet of new natural gas supply, stated to go into service in 2016. Also, as somebody who grew up in the South Shore near Boston, I remember driving by the Dorchester gas tanks. I remember when I was little, there were two of them. There were two gas tanks there that I assume supplied LNG during the winter, so that during peak months, the Boston area had an adequate natural gas supply. Currently, there's only one natural gas tank in Dorchester, and I'm wondering if the situation is that urgent, would it make more sense as a short-term solution to add additional peak shaving tanks to these facilities in Boston and other power plants around the region, as opposed to going into an area that currently has no gas infrastructure at all. Third point I wanted to make is that we heard today that natural gas has about 50% of the global warming potential as oil. As many of you may be aware, Professor Moniz was the director of the MIT Energy Institute and was involved in an academic dispute with other academics at Cornell University who claimed that natural gas, when produced by fracking, has almost the same global warming potential as oil. So I would just ask you all to try to analyze what the actual effect of these energy conservation and initiatives are. We don't want a situation where our consumers are paying tariffs to support new infrastructure that actually does not make any meaningful contribution to reducing global warming. Fourth point is that there is no reason why programs that help people insulate their attics, air seal their basements, replace 40-year-old heating equipment should only kick in if you convert your heating system to gas. Clearly, that's increasing the gas shortage problem. And maybe what we need to do as an emergency situation is to cut these programs off temporarily, have a moratorium, and allow people with oil heating to get their homes done. Final point is that this was a very cold year. I know that in the future we'll probably also have cold years, but it's possible we'll never have a cold year as cold as the one we just had, and because the planet is warming. And consider that also before we decide to invest in new pipelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Jeffrey Leitz. Okay. Francis Pilato. Did I get it right? I butchered it. Okay, sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Francis Pilaro. I'm the Executive Director of Renewable Energy New England, or RENEW. RENEW is an alliance of environmental advocates and renewable energy developers here in New England. Our mission is to ensure that New England's own renewable energy resources are able to be developed. The only point I'd like to make today picks up on some of the comments you heard on the Energy Secretary's panel. I think Congressman Larson pointed out that he sees natural gas as a bridge to the future, the renewable energy future. And I would just ask that as the federal government considers policies, that it continue to keep in mind that here in New England, even if you see natural gas as a bridge to the future, we're still at the end of the pipeline. And if it's made too big, you might thwart state policies that have been in the works for the last decade or so to help develop the region's own renewable resources, so that any policy that is developed, pipelines that are built, are not overbuilt. I think you heard from Bill Dornbos talking about the dangers of stranded costs. You heard from the last panel about a lot of the economic development benefits, reliability benefits, clean energy benefits that come from having renewables built and sited here in New England. So I urge that federal policies help the states achieve their goals that they've been so successful at achieving in the past, and that, from what you heard on the last panel, they're looking to do over the next number of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Tim Castella. Okay. Chris Retcha. No. Steve Kaminsky.
Actually, I'm going to pass on any substantive comments, but just to say I'm with New Hampshire Electric Co-op. It's a consumer-owned utility in New Hampshire, and I really support the work that DOE is doing here. I just want to say somebody was here from New Hampshire, and I noticed there wasn't a single person on any of the panels, but we're interested in this, and it's a very big concern. All these concerns are big for us consumers in New Hampshire as well.
Okay. Thank you. Taufer Orakan. Okay. Aaron O'Sullivan. Lanu Reed. Okay. Chris Hurt.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Herb. I'm the president of the Connecticut Energy Marketers Association. We're a trade association that represents 600 petroleum marketers and their associated businesses in Connecticut. Our members employ about 13,000 people in Connecticut. We're here today in support of the New England Fuel Institute's recommendations that were submitted to you this morning in Providence. SEMA would like to emphasize that the petroleum industry is a big part of the solution to the region's natural gas issues. Bioheat fuel provides a cleaner and more reliable alternative to natural gas. The liquid petroleum distribution chain is strong and has evolved without government policies promoting it or public subsidies paying for it. The most common sense approach to ensuring that energy resources are available in New England to meet power generation demand, home heating, and the needs of businesses is to have a diverse mix of fuels to rely upon. If reliability is a top concern of the federal government, then the answer is simple. Continued and greater use of bioheat fuels is the solution. History proves that when the natural gas industry fails to meet demand, the liquid petroleum industry steps up to bail them out. You cannot find a more reliable fuel source than heating oil or diesel fuel in this region. The only way that the petroleum distribution system can be compromised is by misguided state energy policies that promote one fuel over another and send market signals that discourages future investment in pipelines, terminals, or other storage and transportation infrastructure. SEMA agrees with the following NEFI recommendations. Number one, the administration should be active and vocal in support of the industry-wide transition to an ultra-low sulfur heating oil product throughout the entire Northeast. It is in keeping with the President's environmental goals and is in the interest of the region's businesses and consumers. Our industry stands ready to work closely with the U.S. DOE on this issue. Second, the administration should be active and vocal in its support of the transition to heating oil to a more affordable, efficient, environmentally secure, renewable fuel. NEFI and SEMA encourages the task force to explore ways to increase the production of biofuels that are ready for introduction into the region's heating oil supply and encourage their use. The administration should support the industry's application to amend the ASTM D6751 specification of bioheat fuel to a 20% biodiesel blend or higher. Third, before investing in new natural gas infrastructure or expanded pipeline capacity, state and federal governments should require that existing lines are repaired or replaced at the expense of for-profit utilities themselves, not taxpayers or ratepayers. Power generation, large-scale consumers, heating oil dealers, and suppliers should coordinate to plan properly and hedge for supply situations prior to each heating season to ensure adequate access to all heating sources. While liquid fuels continue to be the backstop for energy consumption, its suppliers must be an integral part of public policy planning. Number four, as the region transitions to an ultra-low sulfur heating oil, supplies of all distillate will become more dependent on supplies from refiners in the Gulf Coast, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the Virgin Islands, and Canada, as opposed to higher sulfur fuel imports delivered by non-Jones Act ships from Russia and elsewhere. Therefore, the QER task force should support investment in upstream transportation in New England and the border, Northeast region states, to secure adequate supply. Thank you.
Again, I'd encourage all of you to submit your comments in writing. QER comments at hq.doe.gov. Okay. Next up, Eric Brown.
Good afternoon, Eric Brown with the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. Thank you all for being here today. With no offense to the headliners on the first panel, my sense was that the last panel with the state representatives, I was very, very encouraged by that. That is an incredible display of different states run by governors of different parties with different agendas coming together and really solidifying around a couple of core messages for you all to take back to Washington. They all want to promote renewable power. They all have aggressive renewable portfolio standards. They all want to encourage local distributed generation. But I think they made a resounding message for you guys to take back to Washington, is that right now the priority, the urgent priority, many of them use that word, is to get this transmission put in place so we can access energy that 10 years ago or 5 years ago, if we had said we've got the possibility of being energy independent with cleaner natural gas and emission-free hydro, we want to talk about out-of-the-box thinking, there would have been rejoicing in the streets, not to mention the impact on our national security situation. So please heed their message, which I thought was clear. There are a lot of components to this, and there's a lot of things we want to promote over a long period of time, but the urgency I thought that they gave was very, very clear, and I hope you'll bring that back with you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then lastly, Peter Aziz.
Thank you. My name is Peter Aziz.
Sorry.
Along with my family, I own and operate Bantam Home and Energy, located in Litchfield County. We provide our customers with BioHeat home heating oil, propane, HVAC services, and energy audits. I currently serve as the chairman of the board of directors of the Connecticut Energy Marketers Association, and we represent 600 family-owned home heating oil dealers in the state. We're proud that we can now make claim to a radically cleaner, renewable fuel. BioHeat, the combination of ultra-low sulfur fuel with biodiesel, is cleaner than natural gas in its emission standard and should be encouraged. In view of the rampant methane leakage from natural gas lines and its impact on climate change, the government should encourage domestic production of BioHeat by renewing the biodiesel tax credit. The home heating oil industry has delivered remarkable efficiency savings to millions of customers, reducing consumption for a typical home from 1,200 gallons per year in 1989 to 700 gallons today. These advancements in combustion technology have come through private innovation and competition. Liquid petroleum products come into New England and are delivered to the end user via pipeline, rail, barge, and over-the-road transport. An extensive distribution infrastructure that was developed privately without any government policy promoting it or any taxpayer subsidies. During the blizzards of 2010, when millions of customers were without electricity, the 7 days of the October snowstorm of 2011, Hurricane Sandy in 2012, the February nor'easter of 2013, and the events of this winter. These crises, which happen every single year, not one community was left without heating oil or propane. This is an industry and an infrastructure that works when the darlings of public energy policy fail. Our industry will continue to function as the supplier of last resort as long as pro-natural gas policies don't send market signals that discourage future investment. When that private investment is undermined, we'll quickly lose our infrastructure diversity. Why do we care about infrastructure diversity? Because deliverable liquid propane is what we pump into natural gas lines when their pressure drops. When the gas lines utterly fail to meet demand, as they do every single year, and they cut off their commercial and industrial customers, home heating oil is what we deliver to those customers to keep the economy moving. That's why we need infrastructure diversity today, and we will need it tomorrow. To maintain the diversity, the government should ensure a level playing field when it comes to investment. It should be incumbent on natural gas pipeline owners to invest their own capital to expand, just as we must in our industry. One reason for government support of natural gas is the assumption that it will remain cheaper than competing energies for decades. This is false, both historically and in the future. Is that me?
Yeah.
I could go on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, again, I can't emphasize enough, please submit your comments in writing.